Welcome to the official podcast series by POTENZA, where innovation meets insight. In this series, we dive deep into the world of SAP, explore the power of robotic process automation, and unlock the true potential of data analytics. Whether you're a tech enthusiast, a business leader, or just curious about the digital transformation shaping our world, you're in the right place. Tune in, stay curious, and let's explore the future of enterprise technology together. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on YouTube for more powerful insights. Now, let's get into today's episode.
Imagine your CFO and your VP of sales just completely screaming at each other in a boardroom.
Oh, man. Yeah, a classic Tuesday morning scenario, right?
Right. Because the revenue numbers for the quarter are off by like $2 million.
And I bet they're both holding perfectly printed, color-coded spreadsheets.
Exactly. They are both entirely convinced that their data is flawless.
Oh, absolutely.
And instead of, actually figuring out how to grow the business, your entire leadership team just spent an hour and a half doing forensic accounting.
Yeah, just digging through rows and columns.
Right there, that is the hidden tax of operating without a centralized, intelligent data strategy.
It really is. And, I mean, it's a scene playing out in conference rooms all over the world right now.
Which is wild when you think about it.
It is, because the organizations that are pulling ahead right now, they aren't necessarily the ones with the deepest pockets or the legacy brand names.
Right. It's not just about who has the most money.
Exactly. They're the ones that have solved that exact boardroom crisis. They've figured out how to build an architecture that forces all of their systems to agree on what reality actually looks like.
Which brings us to the core of today's deep dive. We are looking at this incredibly insightful piece of source material today.
Yeah, it's a really thorough strategy breakdown.
It's titled, From Guesswork to Growth: How Business Intelligence Software Transforms Organizations. And our mission today is basically to unpack the anatomy of modern decision-making.
Because the old way is just, well, it's breaking down.
It really is. We're going to explore exactly why the old gut instinct leadership model is fundamentally collapsing under its own weight.
Yeah, and how business intelligence software, or BI, acts as this vital connective tissue.
And why adopting it is basically a survival imperative at this point.
The shift happening right now is deeply structural. I mean, we are moving away from that fragmented reactive reporting.
And moving toward what the source calls a unified semantic layer. So whether you are an executive trying to, steer a company through a massive pivot, or a manager who is just exhausted from those Tuesday morning spreadsheet wars.
Which we've all been there.
Right. Or even if you're just someone fascinated by how top-tier organizations actually work under the hood, this deep dive is for you.
We really want to bypass the surface-level buzzwords here.
Give you a shortcut to understanding the modern data stack. So, okay, let's unpack this. Before we understand the solution, we have to isolate the exact breaking point of the traditional model.
Right, because human intuition actually served us incredibly well for a very long time.
Right. Decades, really.
But the source material makes a really compelling case for why intuition is suddenly a bottleneck. It's failing at scale.
It's not that executives have suddenly forgotten how to run a business, right? It's the sheer velocity of the environment. Relying on gut instinct today is it's like trying to navigate a supersonic jet using a map from the 1800s.
That is a perfect way to put it. The volume, the velocity, and the variety of modern business data have just completely bypassed our unaided cognitive limits.
We just can't hold it all in our heads anymore.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Think about the architecture of a standard enterprise today. Yeah. You have, customer interaction data pouring in from the CRM.
Like Salesforce or whatever.
Exactly. Then you have inventory and supply chain telemetry coming through the ERP, marketing attribution models running in the cloud.
And payment gateways processing, thousands of transactions a second?
Yes. And trying to synthesize all of those disparate streams in your head, or even in a static weekly report, it's just impossible.
But I have to stop you there for a second, because whenever I hear about the absolute necessity of overhauling a company's data architecture, my skeptic alarm goes off.
Oh, sure. It sounds like a massive sales pitch.
Right. Because an enterprise BI deployment isn't just buying a software license off the shelf.
No, it's a massive undertaking.
You're hiring data engineers, managing massive compute costs in a cloud warehouse, paying for visualization seats. You are looking at hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dollars.
Easily.
Meanwhile, exporting a CSV from a CRM and running a pivot table costs exactly $0 extra. So are these hidden costs of doing things the old way really wiping out a seven-figure IT budget?
See, that is the multi-million-dollar question. And the source material tackles this head-on. It's incredibly tempting to look at the massive capital expenditure of a BI deployment and just say, let's stick with the free manual exports.
It's the safer bet on paper.
But let's look at the actual mechanics of what happens when you rely on those disconnected CSVs. First, you are dealing with catastrophic data latency.
Meaning the time it takes to actually get the numbers.
Right. So if you pull a manual report on Thursday, your analyst spends Friday cleaning the data, and you finally review it with leadership on Monday.
You're looking at old news.
Exactly. You're making strategic decisions based on reality as it existed 4 days ago.
And in a volatile market, 4 days is an eternity.
It's a lifetime. Say a competitor launches an aggressive pricing campaign on a Friday afternoon.
Oh, man.
Right. Your Monday morning meeting is completely oblivious to the weekend's churn. You don't even start reacting until the next week's reporting cycle.
So that latency is just silently bleeding market share.
Quietly and constantly. But the second, and arguably more destructive cost, is the fragmented logic you just mentioned in your opening scenario.
The boardroom fight over the $2 million discrepancy.
Yes. If marketing calculates customer acquisition costs by including, say, overall brand spend,
Right.
but finance calculates it by only looking at direct response ad spend.
They're going to show up to the meeting with two completely different realities.
Exactly. And the hidden tax isn't the spreadsheet itself. The hidden tax is the opportunity cost of an executive team paralyzed by conflicting information.
They are burning highly compensated hours arguing about denominator definitions instead of deploying capital.
It's a huge drain.
I see where you're going with this. The true cost is the decisions that are never made.
Precisely.
It's the predictable customer churn that could have been flagged 3 months ago if the usage data was actually talking to the renewal data, or the inventory stockouts that happened because sales wasn't communicating with the supply chain dashboard.
And those silent compounded failures eventually dwarf the cost of any BI software license.
Okay, so if relying on siloed data is the disease, BI is positioned as the cure.
Right.
But I really want to get into the actual mechanics here, because having raw data dumped into a central warehouse doesn't actually solve the problem if it's just, a massive pile of unstructured noise.
Oh, it just makes the problem more expensive.
Right. So how does BI software physically translate that chaos into something a bank or a massive retailer can actually use?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the source material focuses on the concept of BI as the connective tissue of the organization.
Connective tissue, I like that.
It's not just a visualization tool that makes pretty charts. The real magic happens in the data transformation and modeling layers.
Okay, break that down for me.
A robust BI architecture pulls fragmented information from the CRM, the ERP, the financial software, and it runs it through an ETL pipeline that's extract, transform, load.
Ah, okay. It's like having a universal translator at the United Nations.
Now, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, because you don't just shove all these different software systems into one room and hope they figure it out. BI forces them to speak the exact same language.
Exactly. It maps the conflicting data types, it standardizes the metrics, and establishes a single semantic layer.
So when someone asks, what is our gross margin, the system calculates it the exact same way every single time, regardless of who is asking.
That is spot on. It establishes a single source of truth. It resolves the inconsistencies and calculates those derived metrics autonomously.
Wow.
And the empirical results of establishing that universal translator are staggering. The source highlights that organizations deploying real-time BI see decision cycles that are 5 times faster.
5 times? That's incredible.
Yeah. And 64% of executives now cite this kind of unified data as critical to their baseline strategy. Plus, data-mature organizations boast a 3 times higher return on investment compared to their peers.
Those numbers represent a massive operational moat. But, reading through the source, what stood out to me wasn't just the speed.
What was it?
It was the psychological shift inside the companies. There's this quote in the text that really stuck with me.
Let's hear it.
It says, organizations that deploy real-time BI dashboards consistently report shorter decision cycles and higher confidence. The data is not just faster. It is trusted in a way that spreadsheet exports rarely are.
Trust is absolutely the operative word there. Manual analysis is an absolute minefield for human error.
Oh, tell me about it.
You have Data entry typos, broken VLO copies, version control nightmares.
The classic final version v4, actually final.xls.
Exactly, and the dreaded manual copy-paste failures. BI largely removes the human hand from the aggregation and calculation layer.
Which gives you an immutable audit trail. Like, if a metric on a dashboard looks suspicious, you can drill down through the visualization right into the underlying model, all the way back to the raw transactional data.
You can see exactly where the number came from.
Right. You aren't texting an intern on a Sunday night asking if they accidentally deleted row 400 before they hit save.
And with role-based access controls, you ensure that every stakeholder is looking at the precise slice of that verified reality that they need to do their jobs.
Without wading through a bunch of marketing metrics if you're in HR.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about the practical application of that. We know BI establishes this trusted, real-time semantic layer, but how does this actually change the daily lives of the people working inside the company?
It changes everything, honestly.
Because having perfect data in a dashboard doesn't mean anything if it just sits there. Let's start at the operational level with the analysts and the department managers.
The most immediate operational shift is the complete elimination of data janitor work.
Data janitor work. That is painfully accurate.
Right. Think about the thousands of hours organizations spend building weekly status decks, monthly performance summaries, quarterly board packs.
Analysts spend days just extracting, cleaning, and formatting data.
By automating the ETL pipelines in the visualization layer, BI platforms instantly reclaim those hours.
So you are taking your highly educated, expensive analysts and allowing them to actually analyze.
With a concept, right?
Seriously, they shift from just telling you what happened last week to building predictive models about what might happen next month.
Exactly. And when you have that real-time monitoring running, it acts as an early warning system.
Oh, so.
Well, the text points out how BI shifts an operation from reactive forensics to proactive intervention.
Oh, like manufacturing example in the source.
Yes. A manufacturing system can detect a microvariance in assembly line sensor data and trigger a maintenance ticket before a machine actually fails.
That's wild.
Or a BI dashboard can flag that a specific stage in the sauce sales pipeline is experiencing a 15% drop-off compared to the 30-day rolling average.
Which allows the sales director to intervene mid-quarter. You aren't doing an autopsy on a failed quarter.
Right. You are actively tweaking the dials while the engine is running.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The source material is very clear that the ultimate leverage point for BI isn't actually on the factory floor or in the marketing department.
No, it's not.
It's in the C-suite, which tracks because if the analysts are using granular operational dashboards to tweak the daily processes, the executives need a completely different altitude.
Completely different.
I'd imagine for a CFO, this just completely rewrites how they handle capital risk.
It's a game changer for the CFO. If they aren't waiting until the end of the month to close the books and see the finalized numbers, they can run continuous variance analysis.
They can see cash conversion cycles in real time.
Spot on. For the chief financial officer, BI is fundamentally a risk mitigation architecture. They can build dynamic scenario models.
Like,
say, supply chain costs suddenly spike by 8% in Europe. The CFO can instantly model how that impacts global EBITDA and adjust capital allocation before the quarter ends.
wow. Okay, what about the COO? The chief operating officer is usually the one deep in the weeds of the business engine.
Right. They are trying to balance efficiency with quality. The COO is looking at throughput, resource utilization, and SLA performance across the board.
But they need to see where the friction is.
Exactly.
Wow.
If a logistics hub is suddenly operating at 110% capacity while another is sitting at 70%, the COO's dashboard surfaces that imbalance instantly so they can reroute volume.
And hovering above all of this is the CEO.
The CEO needs the ultimate holistic view. They don't necessarily need to see the microconversion rate of a specific ad campaign.
Right, that's too deep in the weeds.
But they absolutely need to see the blended customer acquisition cost trended against customer lifetime value.
The big picture metric.
They need a curated view of lagging indicators like recognized revenue and leading indicators like pipeline velocity. And they need it without waiting for a manual briefing.
So for the entire executive team, BI just removes the fog of war. It replaces assumption with empirical evidence.
It really does.
But let's take a step back and look at the macro picture. We've established how BI aligns the internal teams, eliminates the friction of manual reporting, gives the C-suite real-time visibility.
All great things.
But a company doesn't exist just to run efficient internal meetings. The ultimate goal is to win in the market.
Obviously.
So how does this internal data harmony actually translate to beating the competition?
It all comes down to the compression of the feedback loop. Speed is the ultimate competitive advantage.
Speed. Okay, tell me more.
The organizations that can read market signals, formulate a hypothesis, execute a strategy, and measure the result faster than their competitors, those are the ones that dominate.
It's like the OD loop, right? Observe, orient, decide, act.
Yes.
BI essentially supercharges the observe and orient phases.
That is a great way to frame it. Because BI is plugged into everything, market data, sales pipelines, customer telemetry, it performs pattern recognition at a scale that is just impossible to replicate manually.
And the source highlights deep segmentation analysis and churn prediction as prime examples of this.
Oh, the churn prediction is huge. If you can analyze the usage patterns of your software and mathematically identify the exact behaviors that precede a customer canceling their subscription, well, you can trigger automated retention campaigns weeks before they actually hit the cancel button.
So what does this all mean? The advantage isn't just having more data. Everybody has data.
Right, data's everywhere.
The advantage is decreasing the time between a market event and your organizational response to that event.
It's about knowing sooner. You launch a new product, you watch the live adoption metrics sliced by demographic and geography, and you pivot your marketing spend by noon on launch day instead of waiting for a postmortem a month later.
That is powerful.
And as an organization scales, adding new product lines, expanding into new geographical markets, acquiring subsidiaries, the complexity becomes exponential.
Traditional reporting just shatters under that kind of weight.
It completely breaks. BI provides the scalable infrastructure that allows a business to massively increase its complexity without losing a single degree of clarity.
Okay, we've painted a picture of this incredible, hyper-efficient, data-driven machine. But there is a massive caveat in the text that we absolutely must address before we wrap up.
Yes, this is crucial.
Technology is a necessary condition for this kind of transformation, but it is not sufficient on its own.
Not at all.
You can spend millions of dollars building the perfect data warehouse. You can have the most beautiful, real-time BI dashboards beamed directly to the CEO's tablet.
It's the fanciest setup in the world.
But if your leadership still sits in a room, looks at the empirical data, and decides to just go with what they feel is right anyway because they don't like what the numbers say, well, the entire system is useless.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is exactly where so many digital transformations fail.
Yep.
BI is not just a software installation. It requires a fundamental cultural architecture. To actually extract the ROI from the modern data stack, a company has to build a culture where data drives every decision.
The software is the engine, but the culture is the steering wheel. Confirmation bias doesn't magically disappear just because your charts are interactive.
It certainly doesn't.
Yeah.
Leadership has to actively model evidence-based reasoning. They have to demand data validation before greenlighting major initiatives.
And the teams have to actually know what they're looking at.
Exactly. Perhaps most importantly, the entire workforce needs to be trained in data literacy. They need to know how to interrogate a metric rather than blindly accept it.
Give me an example of that.
So, if a dashboard shows a sudden 50% spike in web traffic, a data literate culture doesn't just blindly celebrate.
They don't just pop champagne.
Right. They ask questions. Is it bot traffic? Is it a broken tracking pixel? Did we accidentally change the attribution model?
They apply the scientific method to the business operations. They treat the dashboard as the starting point for an investigation, not the final word.
Precisely. BI software provides the necessary mathematical infrastructure, but the culture dictates if it is actually used. When an organization successfully marries a robust BI architecture with a deeply ingrained culture of data literacy, they develop a compounding strategic advantage.
An advantage that is virtually impossible for a legacy competitor to replicate.
Truly impossible.
That is a phenomenal synthesis of the material. So, to summarize the key takeaways for you listening today, gut instinct is dead.
It's over.
Operating with siloed data is a hidden tax that quietly destroys value. Business intelligence software serves as the vital connective tissue, right? Transforming chaotic data into a unified semantic layer.
It gets everyone speaking the same language.
It automates the operational grind, gives the C-suite the real-time visibility needed to mitigate risk, and compresses the strategic feedback loop to give you a massive edge in the market.
But again, true competitive advantage requires both the tech infrastructure and the culture to support it.
So here's our challenge to you. Evaluate your own data infrastructure this week. Look critically at your operations. Where are the gaps?
Where's the latency?
Where are the manual processes creating a dangerous lag? Where do your alignment meetings devolve into arguments about whose numbers are right?
Pinpointing those exact bottlenecks will show you exactly where a modernized data strategy can make an immediate impact.
Absolutely.
And as you map out those bottlenecks, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to just mull over on your own.
Ooh, I love these. Let's hear it.
We've spent this entire deep dive detailing how BI allows companies to achieve near-perfect optimization, spot behavioral trends early, and act with maximum efficiency.
Right.
But let's extrapolate that out into the future. What happens when every single major competitor in your market reaches full data maturity? In a world where everyone has access to perfect, real-time data, and everyone's algorithms are optimizing for the exact same market efficiencies, does the ultimate competitive advantage eventually circle back to the very thing we just spent this whole time trying to replace?
Human intuition.
Exactly. In a landscape of perfect logic is the willingness to take a creative, mathematically irrational risk based on human intuition, the only way to generate true alpha.
A completely optimized market where the only disruption left is a leap of faith. Now that is something to think about. Until next time, keep digging deeper.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the POTENZA podcast series, where we decode SAP, automate with RPA, and analyze with precision. We hope you found today's conversation insightful and inspiring. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and stay tuned for more deep dives into the technologies transforming tomorrow's enterprise. Got questions or ideas for a future episode? Drop them in the comments, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time. Thank you.